Opening hook and value promise. Did England die in a single October afternoon? Not just a defeat, but an operating system overwritten. Laws, language, memory, replaced within a generation. Most people see Hastings as a clash of swords. The real story is the chain reaction, a sprint from Stamford Bridge, Harold's fatal stand, and the voice of England pushed out of power. We'll trace the dominoes from ridge to ruin. The first falls before a Norman boot hits the shore. The world before the fall. Anglo-Saxon England on the eve. To see a collapse, we first need to see the machine. Anglo-Saxon England ran on consent and memory. Succession hit a fault line. The Witan, the council of earls, bishops, and leading thegns, chose kings from royal blood. It worked when elites agreed. It failed when rivals arrived with ships and priests. The Fyrd, local levies, filled ranks. Housecarls held the core. The shield wall wasn't a trick. It was muscle memory bound by oath. Break it and you failed your neighbors. Here's the contradiction. A lean local system that was responsive and brittle. It depended on fast decisions at the top and assumed the top would exist tomorrow. The Fyrd had a timer. Harvest set deadlines. Stability had an expiration date. Identity ran on Old English, the language of law, land, and witness. Replace the language of record, and you sever inheritance from memory. On the eve of 1066, the kingdom looks calm. Underneath, succession contested, defenses seasonal, memory stored in books that can burn. The machine is ready. The timer is set. What follows begins with a wind in the channel and a sail in the north. 2 invasions, 1 king, from Fulford to Stamford Bridge. The first blow doesn't land where anyone in the south is looking. It slams into the Uce outside York. Harold Hardrada, war-forged, relentless, arrives with Tostig, Harold Godwinson's exiled brother, aiming straight at the hinge of the Danelaw. If York flips, England fissures along its old seam. Edwin and Morcar try to bar the crossing at Fulford. They choose ground that should punish attackers, marsh to one side, river to the other. But Hardrada doesn't give them time to script the fight. He pushes weight fast and deep, forcing the English into wet ground where cohesion dies. The shield wall needs firm earth and stable flanks. It gets neither. York negotiates. The message races south without a rider. The north is exposed and the king is somewhere else. Harold Godwinson reads that message and gambles. His main force is already fixed in the south, watching William, the wind pinning Norman sails. But a king can't guard 2 horizons with one body. He chooses speed. He empties his reserves of time to buy surprise. The road north becomes a blade. Housecarls and picked Fyrd take the old lines at a pace that breaks stories and feet. This isn't a shamble, it's a forced march that treats fatigue as the acceptable casualty. And there's the quiet cost. Harvest season. Every day away from fields risks next season's stomach. The calendar fights the king even as he defends it. Stamford Bridge pays back the debt, at first. Hardrada expects tribute and hostages, not Harold, materializing with a full strike force. The Norwegians are strung out, armor off, river between. Harold turns geography into a trap. He snatches the crossing, compresses the enemy, and lets the English machine do what it was built to do. Hold tight and carve. The microstory we can afford is a cheer that sours. Hardrada falls, Tostig falls. The Viking core buckles, then snaps. For a breath, England believes the year is saved. Then reality delivers its second invoice. A messenger arrives from the south. William has landed. Here the machine's design betrays its king. Victory costs men, tendons, and iron. Housecarls bleed. Fyrd terms expire. The Channel Fleet has stood down for lack of supply. Harold faces a choice that looks like fate in hindsight. Consolidate in the north and watch William fortify, or pivot now and risk meeting a fresh enemy with a tired elite and a patchwork levy. Why choose the pivot? 3 cords twist into 1 rope. Logistics. Every day William sits in Sussex. He digs. Timber walls grow. Supply lines tighten. A hard fight gets harder. Honor. Harold's crown rests on presence. He just saved York. He can't let Sussex burn while he rests in triumph. Legitimacy. William isn't just an invader, he's a storyteller with a papal banner and an oath narrative. If Harold delays, that story metastasizes. Only a visible victory can cauterize it. But here's the structural problem. England's military system is optimized for rapid local surges. It isn't a standing army, it's a lattice of oaths with a timer. Asking it to execute back-to-back national marches is asking it to exceed its design. Harold chooses speed again. Stamina becomes the price. The road south is not a straight line, it's a sieve. Men peel off to drag in crops. Wounded are left in northern halls. Fresh levies are called from the Midlands and the Thames Valley, but they're unpracticed at each other's elbows. The corps that reaches London is elite, smaller, and exhausted. Harold's will doesn't fatigue. His options do. He pushes anyway. Because crowns corrode in absence. Because Norman castles rise in days, not months. Because winter is coming, and with it, the end of campaigning season and the beginning of tax season under whoever holds the south coast. The sprint becomes a race against construction. London offers a pulse, then a pressure. News outruns the king. William is near Hastings, anchored to ships that feed him, building a wooden claw into Sussex. Harold must choose again, gather the full realm and accept a season of ruin, or move now and try to break the invader before his roots grip. He chooses now. He takes the road that trades strength for tempo, and with that, the pattern is set. The first invasion is dead by the Derwent. The second waits behind stakes and ditches. The shield wall will be asked to deliver twice in a month, once with surprise, once on a slope chosen by the enemy. Everything important is already in motion. The wind that held William back has turned. The Ferd's calendar is almost spent. The king's honor account is overdrawn if he pauses. England's greatest tactic, standing fast as one body, is about to meet a commander who only needs it to move once. Third, the trap at Senlac. Hastings begins. William is ashore and unopposed. That's the first quiet disaster. He doesn't raid and run. He builds. Amat and Bailey at Hastings bites into Sussex. A wooden claw that turns days into fortifications and fear into leverage. Forts buy time. Time multiplies force. Every English delay fattens at a Norman position. Harold reaches London and faces the decision that defines the year. Hold. Summon the shires. And let Sussex bleed. Or march now and try to crack the invader before his roots harden. He chooses speed. It saved him at Stamford Bridge, but Sussex isn't York. William refuses to budge. He makes Harold come to him, within reach of ships, stores, and a refuge of walls if the day tilts. The ridge at Senlac, high ground north of Hastings, looks like English salvation. Harold seizes the spine. Marshy ground lies below. The slope is broken enough to blunt a charge. On paper, this cancels Norman cavalry. On paper, a shield wall on a crest is a machine built to say no, but high ground breeds confidence that can turn into inertia. William is counting on that. Morning clears. Norman archers step forward and loose. Arrows hiss uphill, but the angle is wrong. Shields and the slope erase most of the sting. Then infantry climbs. Bretons on the left, Normans in the center, Flemings on the right, 3 tongues shouting 3 saints under one will. They strike timber and iron. Housecarls in the core soak the shock. Axes bite mail. The first wave slows, then sags. Cavalry follows. This isn't the fairy tale of unstoppable knights. On this incline, speed dies fast. Horses labor, lances shorten, balance frays. The English line holds. For long minutes that have become hours, the ridge grinds men down. Bodies slide back. The wall breathes, tightens, steadies. This is the national tactic doing what it promises. Absorb, deny, punish impatience. But here's where it gets interesting. Panic doesn't visit the English first. It hits the Breton wing. A rumor ripples. William is down, files waver, then bend into retreat. On the English right, men who've never chased mounted foes see backs, hear confusion, feel the pull of victory. They surge. It's human, it's brave, it's fatal to a wall. Once you step off a ridge in pursuit, you don't step back into perfect order. The slope scrambles ranks. Ground hides holes. Norman cavalry wheels and bites. Infantry pivots and pins. What began as a crack becomes an opening. Whether we call it a feigned flight or a rescue of disorder, the effect is the same. Parts of the English right are drawn down and cut up in bad ground. We have to read bias. The Bayeux Tapestry flashes pursuit and chaos, but narrates in thread and patronage. Norman writers praise cunning, multiple feigned retreats. English voices are sparse and terse, triangulate, and the picture holds. Exploited disorder on the English right opens windows William will force wider. He adapts, that's the real secret of the day. He repeats the cycle, archers to harass, infantry to fix, cavalry to punish any bulge or break. The hours stretch, the sun climbs. The shield wall's strength hides a cost inside muscle. Housecarls are veterans, but exhaustible. Every parry drains. Every step forward to finish a fallen enemy risks a seam. Ferdmen slide in, neighbors brave and bound by oath, but they haven't bled through 20 coordinated shoves before. Archers adjust, early shots thudded into wood. Now volleys arc higher over rims. Whether by order or fatigue, more shafts find faces and throats. The wall becomes a mosaic of microcrises. Here a gap, there a fallen standard bearer's hand replaced by another. There a shield slumping and a neighbor shifting to cover. Command is oxygen. Harold sits where he has to, visible beneath standards, anchoring the center. His presence keeps time. On the flanks, authority thins. In a press this loud, you follow what you can see. You copy the man in front. You chase where the line seems to fold. Norman's signal work, whistles, banners, sudden wheels, feeds that impulse. By mid-afternoon, everything repeats a little worse for England. The ridge still belongs to them, but it's thinner underfoot. Fatigue is a weapon you don't see until a hand misses its catch. The housecarl's axes are heavy. Fingers cramp under straps. Ankles twist on churned turf. William rides the line, lifts his helmet to show his face when fear hisses, and stitches cohesion with presence. The trap at Senlac isn't a pit, it's a tempo. Harold's army is strongest when it refuses to move. William's army is strongest when it can make the English move. Hours of probing teach reflexes. Reflexes produce mistakes. Mistakes on a slope become avalanches in a valley. Now watch the center. Norman missiles thicken. The archers creep closer under the infantry's shadow. Arrows rise and fall like weather. The shield wall hunkers and takes it, but even a perfect roof leaks when it's hammered all day. One man flinches, another steps. A third overreaches to kill a fallen foe and opens a sliver. Cavalry noses in. Not a grand charge, just knife work, poke, test, pull back, wait for the next ripple. Evening leans in. Shadows stretch across hummocked ground, hiding stakes, hiding bodies, hiding shafts set like thorns. The air stinks of sweat, iron, and the sweet rot of trampled grass. The English still own the crest, yet the price to keep it climbs with every breath. And the hinge of the whole machine remains one visible figure under a dragon and a cross, holding a kingdom together by refusing to step back or fall. Everything changes the moment that figure falters, but for now we're at the lip. An army still intact, a commander still alive, an enemy learning the exact pressure that makes a wall flex. One more cycle, and the cost of standing becomes unbearable. 4. Death of Harold. The moment the spine snapped. Find Harold at the standard, not roaming, fixed where the line can see him. The dragon and the cross rise above a knot of housecarls, who form living iron around their king. After hours of grinding, presence is oxygen. The banner isn't cloth. It's a command node the whole ridge sinks to. We argue about the arrow. The bayou's strip tempts us. One figure touching his face, a shaft jutting, a caption naming Harold. Later chroniclers prefer a cleaner symmetry, a melee, Norman blades, a king cut down at sword's reach. Here's the part that changes the battle either way. Whether a flying point of iron or a thrust at close quarters, the instant Harold stops signaling, the center loses its clock. Think of the English formation as a distributed system with one high bandwidth hub. Stability travels laterally, neighbor to neighbor, but timing and intention pulse from the visible core. Harold's voice, his hand, messengers ducking in and out of the ring. When he's hit, packets drop, latency spikes. Local nodes start making their own calls. The Normans don't need prophecy to feel it. Pressure in the center suddenly bites deeper. William, who's kept the wings cycling, senses the slack and throws weight at dusk. Archers push up under infantry shields. A last storm of high arcs falls. Then the ground assault. Low, brutal, repeated. Cavalry noses in, never overcommitting, always ready to wheel and slice any seam that opens. Harold's brothers, Girth and Leofwine, fight in the furnace. They're not decoration. They're secondary hubs, holding pockets together with personal courage. Each time the standard quivers, they counterpunch to stiffen the ring. And then one drops, and then the other. With them go lines of authority that reach into the shires. Succession dissolves alongside cohesion, microstory, and it's the last bright one. The standard tilts. Housecarls tighten, axes up, shields overlapped, knowing exactly what that tilt means. A Norman wedge slams in. Men who train to fight shoulder-to-shoulder shift to fighting back-to-back. They buy minutes with blood because their oath demands nothing less. Courage replaces orders. Courage without orders can't reverse a day. Everything changes when the banner disappears. The dragon isn't just a rally point, it's proof the king still commands. Once it's gone, island logic takes over. You hold the turf under your boots. You obey the loudest voice you can hear. You swing until the pressure on your shield stops. The shield wall, this elegant national tactic, fractures into archipelagos separated by bodies and shadow. William rides the seam. He doesn't let victory get sloppy. Horns call cadence. Banners mark pivots. He drives into the center while pinning both flanks, killing any hope of a planned withdrawal to a second line. The slope that protected the English all day becomes a snare. Retreat downhill is chaos. Uphill is impossible. There's only standing, then breaking. Why did Harold's personal survival matter this much? Because Anglo-Saxon command is embodied. Thanes lead their hundreds. Earls lead their shires. The king fuses mosaics into a single image. In armies with deep staffs, redundancies catch a fallen commander's function. Here, the function is a person. Remove him, and you don't just lose a piece, you lose the board. Norman pens call it judgment, perjury paid in blood. That's propaganda wearing theology. The mechanical truth is colder. After hours of attrition, the English center stops answering coherently. Norman archers step closer. Infantry leans and isn't thrown back. Cavalry dares deeper thrusts, not as grand charges, but as knife work. Probe, pry, pull away, repeat. We return to the arrow because the image sticks for a reason. An arcing shot, 1,000 men in a blur, and one point of iron finds an eye. If that's how it happened, it's the lottery empire's right on. If he fell to swords inside a press of shields, it's the oldest law of kingship. Lead from the front, die at the front. Either way, the clock stops. By twilight, the ring around the standard is gone. What remains of the housecarls are red ovals on trampled turf. Furred clumps shrink, then unravel. Some men bolt toward the woods, others stand and are swallowed. Norman horns sound an ugly blend of triumph and control. William keeps the net tight. This isn't a feeding frenzy, it's a clean kill. Listen for the last English orders. You won't hear them. You'll hear pockets. Hold here. With me. Voices too small to stitch a ridge back together. Standards fall. New standards don't rise. The dragon and the cross are trophies now, carried toward a camp that will write the day in Latin and thread. Dark finishes what the arrows began. The slope, the ditch, the bodies, the churned ground, all conspire against flight. Pursuit is limited. William won't spend men in night chaos. He doesn't need to. The effect is already total. When the moon lifts, there is no king who can command an army. That's the hinge. Brave men remain. Local leaders remain. Oaths still bind small circles. But the spine, the thing that made 100 banners act like one, has snapped. A battlefield loss begins to metastasize into a conquest. No one alive on that ridge can recompile the operating system before morning. V aftermath as apocalypse from Hastings to submission. Night hides the bodies on Senlac, not the strategy. William secures the coast, ferries grain and timber, and ends each day with a new fort. Not a raid, an installation. He advances by pressure points, bridges, fords, roads, and by hunger. The message is simple. This army is staying. London hesitates. William tests Southwark, pivots west, crosses at safer fords, and eats the city's food belt. Logistics becomes politics. Debate turns to surrender. At Berkhamsted, magnates submit. On Christmas at Westminster, the crown descends in incense and steel, while smoke from panicked guards drifts into the right. Two orders overlap. Fire leaks through the seam. Resistance flares. Exeter bargains, then starves. Ely rises, then is ground down. Each revolt meets a faster, harsher, more administrative answer. Movement hardens into governance. Castles multiply. Latin floods, writs. Conquest becomes a system. 6. The harrying of the north. Starvation as a weapon. York flares. Danish fleets test the Humber, and the old Dane law threatens to return. William buys off the Danes, then turns on the north. What follows isn't counterinsurgency. It's erasure through hunger, fields, barns, mills, and herds destroyed so winter can finish the work. Domesday will later write, waste across miles of ink. Archaeology's pollen cores echo the silence in the fields. The result is strategic quiet bought with famine. Castles hold roads and fords. Submission becomes survival. 8. The English that vanished, and what survived. Start with a silence. After Hastings, English names thin in charters like stars before dawn. Thanes who once witnessed land grants go missing. In their place, Odo, Robert, Hugh. That's social amnesia by design. Scriptoria pivot. Vernacular homilies fade. Latin thickens. The Bayeux tapestry unspools while English annals grow terse. Control the archive. Control the future. Yet not everything dies. Shire and hundred courts keep sitting. Sheriffs still rely on neighbors' oaths. The writ expands. A predictable coin keeps the realm coherent. Language refuses to surrender. Old English loses the hall, not the hearth. French takes power. Latin keeps the archive. English feeds and bargains. Over time, the streams tangle. A new English returns, hybrid, muscular, carrying French precision, Latin abstraction, and its own old punch. So did England die? The sovereign operating system did, of Thanes and Whiton, of charters read aloud in English. But the data, habits, tools, courts, coins, a stubborn tongue, survived deletion. It was recopied onto new parchment. Conclusion and CTA. Hold one thing. A kingdom dies fast on a hill, but a people die slow, in law, in ledgers, in the words they can't stop speaking. If this reframed 1066 for you, subscribe and watch our deep dive on the herring of the North next. Comment with the moment you think sealed England's fate. We tell the story's history buried for a reason.